the current trainings in refugee mental health, or mental health for newcomers. This course is called Hope After the Horror, a course series on refugee mental health. This is an initiative that emerged out of the Canadian Centre for Victims of Torture Health Committee. The training really looks to address the identified needs in the community for knowledge and further understanding in mental health, specifically for refugees. And so in collaboration with other CCBT volunteers, the Health Committee had developed a 9-session certificate course, I should say, to train the community on the unique mental health concerns of refugees. And so this CCBT Health Committee had brought together individuals from across the board based on their specialization to facilitate these sessions. There were family physicians, psychiatrists, nurse clinicians, lawyers, settlement workers with specialized knowledge. I see a couple people who are in the course. And so the course objectives are to review theory of trauma and torture dynamics as it applies to refugees, to provide information on supportive practices and holistic systems of care for refugee survivors of trauma and torture, including special needs groups, facilitate the exchange of supportive strategies and interventions to reinforce community networks, and to share common understanding about principles of cultural awareness and competence in mental health, which we've all identified as an important need in this sector. As I mentioned before, there are 9 sessions. They are facilitated by different speakers, as you see here. So far, we've had 5 sessions take place. They run at CCBT from 3 to 5 p.m., so that's 2 hours of information. We have a break in between. It's very, I would say the first part of the session is very informative, and then the second part is more interactive. We provide all participants with materials ahead of the session so that they're prepared for what the speaker is going to be presenting on. So session 1 looked at defining torture, exploring who's affected and how they respond to torture, and also who commits torture and why. We had 2 parts to this. We had 2 speakers, Dr. Wendell Block and Dr. Donald Payne. Dr. Donald Payne talked about the psychological effects of torture and effects of adjustment to Canada. So that's something important that service providers are definitely interested in and can use when they're working with their clients. Session 2 looked at Bill C-31 and its consequences in terms of timelines, appeal rights, rights to judicial review, and the rights of permanent residents and family reunification. Session 3 looked at how trauma, violence, and subsequent stress affects refugee mental health and ways that service providers can help refugees with mental health issues. Session 4 looked at refugee women's mental health, so went into more unique information specific to women, and so we had Dr. Lisa Anderman speak on that. Session 5 looked at the importance of individual circumstance and relevance of life stage and health and psychosocial problems. And so that's the one that we had actually just a couple weeks ago. Dr. Rosemary Mayer spoke on that. Coming up, we have Dr. Deborah Stein and Melinda Frere talk about how forced migration, trauma, acculturation impact children, youth, families, interventions that have been found to be useful, and so that's very useful for a lot of participants who come because they're looking for information that they can use for their clients. Session 7 looked at substance misuse as a mechanism of managing pain experienced by survivors. Session 8 will be looking at the key factors affecting the mental health of LGBTQ identified refugees in Canada. And the final session, which will be facilitated by Teresa and Dr. Lisa Anderman, we'll be looking at vicarious trauma, secondary traumatization, and compassion fatigue. And so as I mentioned before, all participants are given readings ahead of time so that they're prepared for each session. And what we do is conduct evaluations after every session so that we can get our participants' feedback on how to improve the session. And so we make improvements for the next session. The Health Committee hasn't confirmed as of yet when the course will be running again, but we do have a pre-registration list at the back, and I also have course manuals there where you can look at the details of each session as well as the speakers, which you saw up here. But if you want a manual, there are manuals there.